I no longer share a phone with my sister.
Sure, you got a phone?
I heard you taught Riley how to cook turkey over the phone, and that makes you really happy.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, I just told him what I do.
The mental piece is really funny to me.
Of me talking through, this is how you stuff a turkey.
See, but on the other end of the phone, I see really like a crisis situation. You know?
I think that he already had it handled.
Yeah.
He
wasn't worried about it. You're just like, so I don't think it tastes good.
Well, I think he already basically had done it. I mean, he already had it in the oven, I think.
Your wiki on it?
I think he was just defrosting it at that point. I don't think he was gonna cook it until anybody got his house.
Well, come on in.
A bunch of college students that didn't have any homes, I guess.
Yeah, well, no. Yeah, they're in a college town, but they don't have any dorms. There's no dorm set up, so they all have apartments or they stay with host families, something like that. So Ridley's first year, he stayed with a host family, and so this is his second year in an apartment. But not everybody lives as far away as he does, and so most of them will go home for Christmas. And Alabama's too far.
Yeah.
To go home for Thanksgiving. And then come back again. And I really want to come home. I need that from him.
Christmas break is longer for them too, isn't it?
Yeah. So we're probably looking at 2-3 weeks that he'll be home.
I mean, I'm ready to change his airplane ticket or not.
He might. He might. Which is not something we need to talk about here. Welcome back, everybody. Did you enjoy this little 2-week break? Since you didn't have any homework, 2 weeks.
Yes.
Yeah, y'all are all kind of. Are you getting back into the rhythm of school? No.
Not yet.
Not yet. No. Did your Thanksgiving wear you out more than it gave you a break? Yeah.
Everybody's really boring. Cause like none of our cousins are either married or like dating people. Or like 3. And so it's just like sounds like a good old time. There's nobody there except for really old people. Or really small people. Yeah. So who did you hang out with?
Well,
Like usually our cousins table is like me, Leela, and then like our older cousins, and then this year it was me, Leela, and a 4-year-old and a 8-year-old. So it was rough.
welcome back. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're all here. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and get started and just get what we can get. Who are we missing? Robert's not here.
He's here.
Is he?
He's outside.
Sure he'll be in a minute.
Lighting things on fire.
Lighting things on fire.
Yes. I don't know. I didn't question it. I came inside.
You know that's a very man thing to do, right? It's a very boy thing. Light something on fire. Let's just watch it burn.
I like to light things on fire too, but not when I'm late for a class.
Priorities. Burning things is better than going to English class. Okay. Pronouns. We're picking up with pronouns again. Ready? All right. Oh. Relative pronouns. Okay. We talked about who and whom. Subjective and objective. These are always referring to people. Did I spell that right? People.
People?
Yeah, I just had that E going up a little high and it confused me for a second. You ever write something and go, wait a minute, that doesn't look right. You ever do that? Okay.
All the time.
Well, I'm not a good speller anyway, so that threw me for a second. Okay, those are always referring to people. All right. Which and that. Which and that. These are all relative pronouns, okay, and I'm going to talk about them in just a second. That is going to refer to an animal or a thing. An animal or a thing. And which is also going to refer to an animal or a thing. Both of these refer to animals. Animals or things. Okay. One more. What? This is a relative pronoun. And this is going to refer to a non-living thing. Non-living thing. All right. So, because these are relative pronouns, they can introduce a relative clause. They can introduce a dependent clause. So, if I say, golfing is what I'm good at. Golfing is what I'm good at. It's not a true story, but just for the sake of, this is your relative pronoun, and this is a clause, because your verb is here. Okay? This is I am, so there's your verb. This is the subject, this is the verb of this clause. It is a dependent clause, because what I'm good at has a subject, this is the pronoun. This is the subject and this is the verb, but this cannot stand alone. It is a dependent clause. You see what I'm saying? Also, just to shake things up a little bit, for the whole sentence, where's the subject of the sentence? Somebody said it. Golfing. Golfing is the subject of the sentence, right? Where's the verb? Is. Okay. Not a transitive verb. This is not an action verb, okay? Golfing is what I'm good at, right? Well, what is what I'm good at? Golfing. This is a predicate nominative. The whole clause is the predicate nominative. Okay, you see what I'm saying? Golfing is what I'm good at. If you flipped it, what I'm good at is golfing. You're saying this is the same thing as golfing. You're renaming golfing here. Does that make sense? Okay, predicate nominative. All right, I don't want to spend any more time on that, but I just wanted to run that by you. Okay. So I'm going to give you something for, just know that these are relative pronouns. We got all that, right? Relative pronouns. I'm going to erase this one. Oh, me. Which and that. We talked earlier in the year about restrictive and non-restrictive clauses and phrases. Do y'all remember that? Restrictive is something that has to be in the sentence, because if you take it out, you change the meaning. And non-restrictive is something that can be, it's a detail that can be taken out without significantly changing the meaning of the sentence. Okay, so if it starts with which, you can look at it and say this may be non-restrictive. It's more likely that you can take it out. If it starts with that, this is restrictive. You have to leave this in because it's telling you something that will absolutely change the meaning of your sentence if you take it out. Okay? So if you're curious, do I need to put a comma here because you're writing a sentence which has this, either one of these, which or that? Okay, if you're looking at this saying, does this need a comma? If it starts with which, if the phrase starts with which, phrase or clause, it's very likely that you'll need a comma, that you can set this thing off with commas before and after. If it starts with that, you probably don't need a comma. Okay? Yeah? Nodding heads? Okay. Any questions about that? No. Okay, I'm moving away from that. Are y'all awake this morning? Everybody up? No, Sarah? I'm sorry, I should say Sarah Catherine. We got another Sarah. Okay. Topic sentences. We talked a little bit about this already. You okay? Are you injured?
No.
Okay. We're just propping up in a new way here. Make yourself at home. I'm glad you feel comfortable. Topic sentences. Topic sentences. When you begin your paragraph, the first sentence is your topic sentence. the rest of the sentences in that paragraph need to relate to that topic sentence. So if your topic sentence is South America is, the greatest place to visit. Yeah. Okay. South America is the greatest place. I see a globe there in the corner. South America is the greatest place to visit.
That makes a lot more sense. I thought you were just like
South America.
looking out into the distance.
Looking out into the distance.
Waiting
Well,
beyond.
yeah.
Tiny
Great beyond. No, I was. Okay, so maybe I should look down here at this globe. South America is the best place to visit. This is my topic sentence, okay? I don't need to then discuss erasers. I don't need to talk about, South America is down there and the erasers are up here, but the eraser doesn't need to come into my paragraph about South America. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Unless what?
It has something to do with South America, like there's a factory in South America that creates amazing erasers.
I see what you're saying, but if my topic sentence is South America is the best place to visit, how do I then work in the eraser factory?
Especially if you love eraser factories. Sorry.
That little wave.
Especially if you love eraser factories.
Eraser.
What was that?
I don't know how you can put that in your paragraph, but you have to put the jazz hands in there.
Do you have to draw them or
Yeah,
just
no.
in parentheses?
Maybe like emojis.
Okay. Okay. Y'all are being ridiculous. But
No emojis in paragraphs, right?
no emojis. Okay, another thing, just let me tell you this real quick. One of the things that we do in texts, I have noticed, is if you're saying something that requires an exclamation point, sometimes you do 3 or 4 in a text. No. Don't do that in your papers. If you need an exclamation point, 1 is enough. 1 is enough. If you need a question mark, 1. 1. Don't give me 3 exclamation points or 6 question marks because you're very excited about this question. Don't do that. If you're writing a paper and you need a question mark, 1. 1's enough. Don't give me more than that. I see this a lot. I'm just telling you, I see this a lot. All right. Quotation marks. That's the next thing we're going to talk about. So in the United States, it's a little bit different if you cross the pond.
To South America?
No, not to South America. That's not what I meant. United Kingdom. It's different over there. Okay, so in the United States, if a comma or a period follows a quotation, it goes inside the quotation marks. Okay?
It's different across the pond?
There are some rules that are different. So I'm not giving you those rules, I'm giving you these. Thank you for that clarification.
What if I turn in a paper to be a professor?
To an English? Like an English?
An English
like
professor?
An English professor teach English. She's from England.
He is English. Yeah.
Well, okay, is he teaching this professor, this hypothetical professor that you're going to turn in a paper to? Is he English but in the United States?
No.
If he's somewhere in the UK, and you're turning in your paper to somebody in the UK, then you have to go by those rules.
Interesting. But if we're in America?
But if you have somebody who has always taught in the UK and then he comes over here to teach, he's got to go by these rules because now we're in the United States.
What if he marks you off? Are you going to yell at him?
Yeah.
Are you going to be like, excuse you?
Yeah.
Really?
I give
You
you,
would?
yes, because we're in the United States. If you come as a professor, if you come to the United States and then try to apply rules from a different system here, I'm going to say no. Maybe I won't yell because I'm not a yeller, but
It'd be really funny if you did.
would it?
Yeah.
I think it would scare you if I did that.
No, it would scare you. You get like quiet when you're maddest, so
Yeah.
yelling would be kind of comical.
Yeah, okay. Why are we talking about this?
My bad.
Commas. Commas and periods go inside the quotation marks, right? When you're okay. You know what a dialogue tag is? he said, she said, they answered. That's a dialogue tag. So when you're writing dialogue, when you have somebody said, they answered, she laughed, he, whatever it is. If it's a tag like that, so let's say you have your quote, I want to go home to the UK. I want to go home. So there's the quotation marks. That's what this person is saying. Who's going to say this? The professor said the professor. Okay. Because this is the end of the sentence, you need a comma. But the comma goes inside the quotation marks. All right. Does that make sense?
Is that American rules or?
Yes.
Okay.
This is United States rules. Why would I give you rules from somewhere else?
I thought there was supposed to be a comparison.
Why would I do that? This is this is tedious enough. This is tedious enough without me giving you the Australian rules and the Icelandic rules and the Brazilian rules and Alabamian rules. Why would I do that? United States. This is all we're talking about, right? So when you have a dialogue tag, this is going to be the end of the sentence. You have to have a comma inside the quotation marks. So if I flip it around and say, the professor said, then your comma goes here. Okay, your comma goes here before the quotation. And then you have, I want to go home. And your period goes inside the quotation marks. Okay? When you have a comma or a period, it's going inside the quotation marks. Yes? Got it? Okay. Question marks. Question marks sometimes will get you. Let's say, the boy said, may I go home? Well, let's say this. He asked. The boy asked, comma, may I go home? This is a question, right? But is the whole sentence a question, or is it just the quotation? It's just the quotation. So the boy asked, may I go home? Okay. Question goes, the question mark goes with the question.
What
Okay.
if it was, did the boy ask me out of home?
Okay, that's where I was going. Did the boy ask? We can even change it a little bit more. Did the boy say, I want to go home? Okay, now, is this a question? I want to go home. No, it's not. So, but this is. The whole thing is a question. So your question mark goes on the outside. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. All right.
What if his in the quotation marks is a question?
Then you use double question mark.
What are we talking about?
Like, did the boy ask may I?
So if this is a question, if the whole thing is a question and this is a question, did the boy, did he say, may I go home? Okay, you do not ever need to put that. Yeah, but let's see. Okay, let me flip this around one more time. Because I'm going to give you another. May I go home? ask the boy. Okay. Because this is not the end of the sentence. The dialogue tag is the end of the sentence.
Lily.
Lily, no.
Okay.
Sorry, I haven't seen any Lily. Okay. May I go home? Question mark, because this is the question, all right? But that's not the end of the sentence. The dialogue tag is the end of the sentence. So you do have to have a question mark in here. And this is something that you don't have with commas and periods. Like if the end of the sentence is obviously way out there, you don't have a period and then another period after the dialogue tag. But with a question mark, you can. Are you laughing at me?
No.
Okay. You do have a question mark inside the quotations, and then you have a period at the end of the sentence. Are we
But
searching
you
for
don't capitalize the last part.
No. No, you don't capitalize the dialogue tag. All right. Any questions? No? There's a lot of movement in here. Some kid. Okay. You're correct. What are y'all talking about?
She didn't answer your question. She didn't answer you.
What? Did I?
You asked who's Lily. And she didn't answer.
Oh, do you know who Lily is?
But they found her. She has 4-H.
Oh. Is this a little kid?
She's like 4 or 5.
4. Okay. Next thing. All right, I'm going to talk about something that I have not taught in here before. Okay. Take one back. This side. Leo. Take one and pass it.
So many squigglies.
So many squigglies. All right. Have any of you heard of a 3-act structure? Why are you frowning about that? It's kind of built into our storytelling. So you will follow this even if you don't know about it, because you were the one who kind of nodded in understanding when I talked about Aristotle a couple of weeks ago. And way back in 300 something BC, he talked about the 3-act structure because he didn't come up with it, but he recognized that in the best stories you have this 3-act structure. And I've talked about plot before, and I've talked about the story arc, and typically I've just had an arc going up and then dropping after the climax. But this is a little bit, I'm just going to give you a little bit more this time, okay? So, every good story, the best stories, have a 3-act structure, and it can get really, really detailed. All right, and I have this. Y'all can take notes on this, or you can take notes on your paper, but I think you're going to need this later for what I'm going to ask you to do. All right, the hook. We've talked about a hook before. What's a hook? Yeah, you have to capture the attention. You have to capture the attention. So in Act 1 of a short story or a movie or anything, in Act 1 you have to have something that grabs the attention, right? Your hook is the kickstart. This is the kickstart of your story. This works with movies. This works with pretty much anything. Any story, any book, any movie, plays. You're gonna see something in the beginning that's gonna be a hook. It's gonna get your attention, because if you don't have that, you don't have a reason for the audience to stay engaged. Okay. All right. So the hook is the first domino. This is the first domino, and once you can get that domino knocked down, then everything will fall in line if you have set it up well. All right. at this point, at the very beginning of your story, your audience is pretty open-minded. Okay, your audience is pretty open-minded to the setting the world that you're building, the setting that you're creating. Because if you begin your world, let's say you're writing a story and you're not on planet Earth, you're somewhere else. The audience can go with you in that. Or the rules of your world are all the animals talk. You know, you can set whatever the rules are, you can set those up in the beginning. But that's when you have to do it. Because if you have a world that you have built in which the animals do not talk, well, you can't have your animals start talking in, Act 3.
Tell God that.
Tell God that. How do you... Very good, Leela. Very good, Leela.
Somebody needs to teach him some grammatical rule. Well, I guess this isn't grammar. Some story.
I'm going to step back from that. I'm going to step back from that one before the lightning strikes. Okay. You are building in your story, and I think we can make an exception for God. When he makes the donkey talk, I think we can make an exception for God. We're not God. So when you're when you're building your setting, when you're building the scene for the opening of your story, whatever rules you create, you have to operate within those rules. When you're writing, you have to stay within the structure that you create at the beginning. Okay. The audience will throw a fit if you all of a sudden change everything. Do what? Well, that was a... You're right. I don't need to go any further in that because I'm not going to try to explain that one. I'm not God, and I'm just telling you the way it works here. Maybe not in the UK, but here in the United States. Kidding. I'm kidding. Okay. Okay, this is where also you're going to meet your characters. You're going to introduce... Y'all know protagonist and antagonist. You know what that means? The protagonist is the main character, the hero. The antagonist is either a bad guy or it can just be whatever force is keeping the protagonist from getting what he wants, accomplishing the mission, whatever. It can be a person or it can be just a sort of an antagonistic force. Does that make sense? No? Yeah, okay. I'll try to explain that in a minute. All right. You have to, I've told you before, you have to make your characters likable. And it doesn't mean that necessarily that your character has to be sweet and loving, but it means relatable. So when you start writing your character, you need to introduce your character to the audience in such a way that the audience wants to go along in the story. The audience is invested now in the character. Because let's say your character is about, your character is a dog. Okay, your character is a dog. You're writing a story about a dog. If you don't know anything about this dog, if you don't know where he came from, if you don't know, like you got this dog, maybe you open with a snarling dog. If, 3 pages into it, the dog is in danger. If you haven't done a good job of setting up your character where the audience knows what has happened to this dog and why he's in the situation, why is he snarling, and if he's in danger, you're not invested. It's okay if the dog's in danger and you can walk away from it. But if it's a dog that you have watched with his master, you have seen the little boy playing with him or whatever, and then, the boy is snatched away and somebody's trying to grab this dog, well, then you see why the dog is snarling, you see why he's being mean, and it makes sense to you. And then you don't want the dog to be in danger because he was a really good dog. He was taking care of his boy. Right? I really like you. And you laugh at me a lot, and I don't know why. And you do the same thing. sitting back there. Okay, but you're throwing off my groove.
I'm sorry.
You've thrown off the teacher's groove. Out the window you go. All right, no. I know what I'm talking about. The Emperor's New Groove. Okay.
Confusing if they didn't understand that reference.
Yeah, that would be very convoluted.
All right. Okay. What was I talking about? Characters. You have to make your characters relatable so that your audience wants to go with the character through the story. Because if your audience can't connect to that character, then you lose the audience. And the audience doesn't care what happens later to the character. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. Within this first act, you have, oh goodness, I gotta speed this up. You have the hook, and then you have the inciting event, or sometimes called a plot catalyst. So something happens with the main character, and for the first time, they get a glimpse of whatever the opposition is, whatever the antagonist, the antagonistic force. For the first time, they brush up against whatever this is. And so I was going to do this later, but y'all know the movie Toy Story? You've seen it? Are you familiar with it, or is it just sort of hazy back there? It's hazy. Okay. I was going to do this later, but I'm going to try to walk through it at the same time as I'm teaching this.
We can smile and nod though.
You can smile and nod. Okay. The movie Toy Story. Do you remember how it opens?
Which one?
The only one that matters. The first one.
Whoa. The second one is really
Okay.
good.
Yeah, you're right. The first one is just the best. I think the first one's the best. But it's probably because that's the one that y'all watched the most as little kids. Anyway. All right. So when you start, the movie is going to open with a birthday party. Do you remember this? Andy's about to have the birthday party.
Oh, yeah.
Andy's about to have the birthday party, and so then you have Woody there, and this movie is about Woody. The story follows Woody, even though Buzz is there, and you see glimpses of Buzz in his part of the story, but this movie follows Woody. He is the one who, the character arc goes with him. He's the one who changes. He's the one who goes from this kind of person, and then later on he becomes the hero. So at the beginning, you're opening with a birthday party, and all of I think the birthday party is going to be the hook, where they have this meeting. The toys have this meeting beforehand, and oh no, Andy's birthday party has been moved to today. So they're all flipping out. They're all flipping out because they're afraid. What are they afraid of?
Getting replaced.
They're afraid of getting replaced, right? They're afraid that they're going to get kicked out. So you have all of them kind of, there's just chaos here. And then Woody says, no, don't worry. And then you're starting to meet the character then. You're starting to find out about Woody, because then they tell you, oh, Woody's not worried because, anybody know? Why is he not worried? He's been Andy's favorite since kindergarten, right? He's been Andy's favorite for a long, long time. And so now you know Woody's place. Woody is the favorite character, okay? So there's your hook. When is the first time, so I'm talking about an inciting incident. When is the first time that Woody brushes up against what the conflict is going to be? Do you know?
When he unwraps the paper and it's Buzz and he's like, whoa, and he's like,
yeah, I would say that's a good one to look at. And also when Buzz gets put on the bed and Woody is knocked into the floor. Woody's knocked into the floor. So there you have a moment where Woody goes, oh no, oh no, this might be a real thing. This might be what's going to get me. Okay, so there's your inciting incident. You get a glimpse with your inciting incident. You get a glimpse of what this is actually going to be about, what the story will be, what the whole thing is hinging on. Okay, so then you have your first plot point, and the way I have that on your paper is the plot point is at the end of Act 1, and it also starts the second act. Okay, so it's sort of a turning point. All right, so I would put, and I was just trying to think of this really early this morning, so I may have put the points in the wrong position. Somebody might can correct me. But I would say that the first plot point is when Woody knocks Buzz out the window. Right? He knocks him out the window. Everything changes. Everything changes. There's no going back. There's no going back from this. Right? At the first plot point, the main character has to buy in to whatever the conflict is. The main character has to buy in. It's a turning point. It's a decision that the main character has to make. Do I engage? Do I engage in this, or can I walk away? Right? And they don't want to walk away because that's part of a good story. Your main character doesn't want to walk away. They want to engage. So he gets knocked out the window. They end up at gas station or something. Yeah, they end up at a gas station, and then Woody finds a way. You know, he knows that Andy is going to Pizza Planet. He's going to Pizza Planet, and Woody sees the truck, right? And so he's like, okay, I can get us home, or I can get home. But then his thought is, I cannot go home without him. I can't show up there without him. I've got to take him. And that's the story. That's the story. He's got to get Buzz back home. They got to get back home together. All right. And so once you have this set in motion, there is no turning back. There's no turning back. The protagonist has to continue. All right. There's a call to action here. There's a call to action with the first plot point. And there's going to be some stress through this. There's going to be some opposition through this, but that's where the story is. All right. Okay. So this is a segue. That first plot point is the end of Act 1, and then it turns into Act 2. This is the segue. This is where, and typically Act 2 is the longest section of a story or a movie. It's the longest section of anything. So, I think I would put plot point 2. I would say is when they're at the gas station and Woody realizes I can't go back without him. We've got to set this in motion because we've got to get back to Andy. So they end up at Pizza Planet, and then who do they meet? Sid. They go home with Sid. They go home with the nasty boy who tears up toys and explodes.
I was gonna say like
Yeah, he takes those things and whatever those little aliens goes home with him. And so you've got this section where you're at Sid's house, and Sid is terrible to his toys and tears his sister's stuff up. And okay, this is the point where sometimes you get a glimpse of the antagonist side. You get a glimpse of who he is. And so there are some moments here where you get to see what Sid is doing, and Woody is kind of over here in the corner, and you get to meet him, and you get to see what he's interested in. You see him setting the clock, and he's, for the next day when he's going to explode something with a rocket. And you see him tearing his sister's stuff up and then running down the hall when she's screaming and she's lying, I didn't do it. So you're meeting the antagonist. You're meeting the real opposition for the first time. You get to see him. This is when you learn what's really at stake. In Act 2, you're learning what's really at stake if you fail. What happens if the protagonist doesn't make it? What's going to happen to him? Well, he's going to end up with Sid forever or just totally destroyed because Sid doesn't care about anything. All right. So knowing all of this that's going on with Sid, this second plot point where they end up with Sid, this transitions you into plot point 3. And this is the showdown. This is the showdown between protagonist and antagonist, but it's not the final showdown, okay? This is the showdown where you think that there might be a victory, right? There might be a victory. So Woody has rounded up all of these toys. He's rounded them all up. He's gathered his troops, and they're going to make this assault on Sid, right? And they do this, and they beat him, but it's not the end. And so what you have with plot point 3 is you'll get to the point where you have let's see, what's the word? Sometimes called a false victory. When you get near the end of a story, sometimes you'll see this in other stories in movies if you watch them. You'll have what looks like a victory, and then all of a sudden it's sort of snatched out from under the protagonist. Do you know what I'm talking about? Y'all have seen this before. You're getting to the end of the story. You think the protagonist is about to win, and they do gain some ground. They do. There may be some sort of victory in it, but it's not the final victory because it's taken away from them. So Woody and all of these other toys, like they're coming out of the sand and they're talking to Sid and scaring him to death. That's a victory, right? It's a victory, but they don't get what they want. Why do they not win right then? The moving truck leaves them behind. Okay. So when you get to this plot point 3 and you've come so close to winning, and then it's sort of knocked out from under you, sometimes this is called the dark night of the soul, right? Wow. This part in a story, this part in a movie is sometimes called the dark night of the soul because you've gotten so close, your hopes are so high, and then it's just dashed. Okay, this is the turning point that leads you into the climax, right? And so the climax for this is going to be the chase. They're chasing the moving van, right? This is the height of the action. You've got Slinky stretching out, and you got the race car that they're riding, and they're almost there, but then again, everything, it snaps. You know, somehow he lets go, or I can't remember exactly how it happened, but then they're stranded. They're stranded here on this race car. So when you get to the climax, what the protagonist does is he takes all the lessons that he's learned along the way to turn it to victory. How does he get the rocket on the back? How does he get the thing lit? Yeah. He has a match that doesn't work. He lights it, and then a passing car blows it out. Do you remember how he lights the rocket? He uses Buzz's helmet. He moves Buzz over so that the sunlight comes through. I don't think this would ever work with a plastic toy. But anyway, he leans it over and he lights this rocket with Buzz's helmet because the sun is coming through. Where did he learn that?
Sid.
He learned it from Sid. When he's in Sid's house, Sid has a magnifying glass, and he's burning a hole in Woody's head. So he takes this thing that he's learned and he uses it later. So what you're doing, what you see in the climax is the hero is able to get whatever he's learned before, all of the lessons that he's learned before, and he's able to use it in the climax. So they light the rocket, off he goes. They wind up in, I can't even remember how they get up in the air, but I guess Buzz's, his wings stretch out. Those little plastic wings snap, they snap out. And so then you have him up in the air and they fly, following with style, right? That's the thing from the beginning. You're not flying, you're following with style. Well, now all of a sudden, Buzz is flying. He's flying. And so he has his own, I don't want to get all into it. Yeah. I don't want to go through that. But there's your climax. They drop into the car. They're safe. And that's almost the very end of the movie, right? That's almost the end. And so what you have after the climax, you usually have some kind of resolution. And all the resolution does, is it lets the climax sink in. It gives just a minute for the climax to actually sink in and calm down. And then that's the end of the movie. All right? Y'all can do that with pretty much any movie. You can do it with Star Wars, or you can do it with Jurassic Park. Or Jurassic Park is really a good one. Because those, I don't have time to go into all that. But let me give you your assignment sheet because I need to tell you what I want here. You love Jurassic Park?
People who
Okay. I don't have a lot of time to get through this, just maybe about 10 minutes, and we'll see what we can do. Okay. Last year I did an assignment where I had you zoom in and then zoom out. And those of you who have come up from middle school, I don't think I did that there, but let's see if we can do this real quick, because what I want you to do is take the bones of a story that you already know, and then like we're gonna look at the story that we already know. We're gonna see who is this character and what are the movements? How do they get from this point to this point to this point, and what does that mean for their story? So we're gonna look at this in detail, and then I want you to draw back so that the details become fuzzy. You're zooming out, okay? So then you just see the big movements. And then I want you to take that and make your own story out of that skeleton. Okay, let me show you what I mean. All right, so what's a story that y'all all know pretty well?
The Bible.
The whole thing, bro?
Okay.
Noah the Ark. Bro, you know how many story arcs would be in the Bible? That would be crazy.
Yes, which I don't know if you looked at the assignment sheet or not, but I want you to choose a Bible story
Yeah.
this time.
She said the whole Bible, bro. I'm talking about
Well, it's all
man.
about Jesus. It's all about Jesus. Yeah. Yeah, it's either, yeah. What did you say, Sarah Catherine? Did you say one? Maybe it was Mary Taylor. What did you say?
Can we write
I
about
said Noah.
Balaam?
What?
Balaam.
Balaam. What'd you say?
Does it have to be about the thing what you're using right now?
No, not what I'm using right now.
Cinderella.
Cinderella. Everybody knows the Cinderella story.
Oh, is this?
And
I remember.
everybody probably knows the Disney version of Cinderella, so that's what we'll talk about. Okay. Cinderella. All right. Who is Cinderella?
A girl.
She is a girl.
Named Ella.
A girl. Okay. What do we know about her?
Daughter of a wealthy man.
Daughter of a wealthy family. Do we know anything else about her personality? No mom. No mom.
Her stepmom's mean.
Has a stepmom. Free spirited.
Dad's dead. She's kind of tight-spirited. Like,
She's kind of
I
what?
think if she was free spirited, she'd have broken out a long time
yeah,
ago.
she's not free-spirited. She's got a lot of self-control.
Okay.
This is
Well,
fine.
maybe free spirited. Maybe you just mean she's kind. She's kind and compassionate. What do you mean? If that's not what you mean, what do you mean?
Before her dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
She was free spirited, so she would play and whatnot. She would read books. And,
Yeah. Innocent.
That's what.
Yeah. Innocent. Okay.
That's what I mean.
So, okay, all right. So we just got to get. Okay, let's say innocent. Because some people would take free spirit and connotation. I've talked about denotation and connotation. Connotation might sometimes, if you say free spirit, some people think rebellious. And so, innocent is what you're looking at. She's not rebellious because you're saying that if she were that kind of free spirit, she would have been gone a long time ago. We agree? Okay, we agree. She's a girl. She's from a wealthy family. No mom. She has a stepmom. She's innocent. What else do we know about her?
Her dad brutally dies.
Brutally. Whoa.
It's a Disney movie.
Dad dies.
Or at least one parent has to die.
Why is it brutal?
Well, because it's a Disney movie. Like every Disney movie ever. It's like, and the parents.
No. I mean, brutal is when in the Lion King, the dad dies there. He's trampled to death. That's brutal.
I
That's
don't
brutal.
remember how he dies, so we're just assuming it's brutal.
I think it's a heart attack.
Yeah, I think it's a heart attack.
I think it's a heart attack.
Oh,
Like he falls off his horse.
I thought
Did
it was
you say
carriage.
voodoo?
I thought it was
Voodoo.
carriage.
Oh, I thought you said voodoo. I was like, whoa.
Yes.
No, I did not. There's no way I just made that up.
Who knows the story of Cinderella where the dad's carriage falls off a cliff.
This has to have happened.
Was Cinderella?
What? What are you talking about? What version is this?
I'm gonna Google it. I think they're talking about the live action.
No.
This is carriage fall off? We can't do this, y'all. We can't do this.
Anyway,
We gotta
he's
know
dead.
about Cinderella. Who is she as a person? Anything else?
She really likes rodents.
Why?
She's friendly with animals.
Why?
Because she has no friends.
Dang.
She's lonely, right? She's lonely. Lonely. Thus, the rats. She talks to rats. She talks to mice because she doesn't have anybody else. And she doesn't have anybody else. She doesn't have any friends. Why?
Because she's like in the room taking care of her step family.
Yes, she is
Captain.
captive. She's captive.
She's a slave pretty much.
Captive. Mistreated.
Bless her little heart.
Mistreated. Okay. So this is who you know. You know this person. So when you get started on your assignment this week, your assignment is to use the Bible story. So use one that you know. Find out what you know about the characters. If you're going to use Samson, read a little bit back and find out how much do you know about Samson? What is he like? What is his history? Just so you know your character, okay? So whatever story that you use, find your character, know whatever you can know about your character. All right, so we got Cinderella here. Now let's talk about what happens to her. Oh, I'm out of time. Dad dies. This sets things in motion, right? This sets things in motion. This is just who you know.
Her dad married before he dies. But he gets married before.
Yes. Yes.
But we open the Her mom dies. Dad remarries.
Dad
dies.
remarries.
That's like
Before.
Mistreatment. All right. Mistreatment of Cinderella. Something big. The ball. The ball is announced. Big event, right? Big event. Chance for escape. Chance for escape. Love. Friends. This is her big shot, right? But then, yes, there's a lot at stake. So it's snatched away from her, right? The stepmother's gonna take it away. It's taken away, all right? And then you have fairy godmother. Fairy godmother. And I gotta go down this way. All right, what happens after fairy godmother? She actually gets to go. She gets to attend the big event. Big event. Hope. All right, she has hope. All right, but then again, the stepmother, somebody locks her in the room, right? Locks her upstairs because she figures out that she's the one. Locked up. How does she get out?
Depends on which story.
Rats. Where cartoon?
Okay, yeah.
The mice get her out.
Rats, that has a different connotation.
Mice get her out. The mice help her, so she gets help. She has friends. She gets help from her friends. I'm looking past the details of this. So if you're looking pretty close, the friends are mice. But if you draw back a little bit, some of those details are lost. And so she's just getting help from someone, right? She gets help. This is the climax. This is the final battle. This is the confrontation because the antagonistic force is the stepmother keeping her in her room. So she's this close to losing the prince. She's this close because she's just cutting it so close because the guy with the slipper is about to leave, right? It's really close. But the mice help her out. Her friends push her to victory, and then you have that's the climax, the battle to, get to the get to the slipper. All right, so then you have the climax, and then you have the wedding. You have, for Cinderella, it's a wedding, but for another character, it just might be freedom. you know, whatever it is. So take your story, whichever one that you use, learn who your character is, and then you can jot down the details of what actually happens. But when you write your own story, draw back a little bit so that your details are not clear. All right, and you just have the big movements of the story, the big shifts in the story. And I don't need to know what Bible story you chose. It doesn't have to be obvious. Okay? You can tell me if you want to. But sometimes, I mean, people do this all the time. They borrow the structure from an old familiar story and they write a new one. And sometimes you can tell that they borrow the structure and sometimes you can't. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But if you use a story that works, the structure is there. And if your story is structured like the one that works, it's a good story. Okay? Any questions? Thank you very much. Welcome back. Welcome back after Thanksgiving. See you next time.